And good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Morning Brew live on Brew Sports. We welcome you inside the studio for a Monday edition of the program, or a Tuesday edition. This is how kind of crazy. I was up way too late last night. My days are blurring together now, unfortunately. It is a Tuesday edition of the program. We've got a lot of good stuff to get to today. I am Baxter Colburn. That's Jaymee Evers over there. Jaymee, how are you today?
I am wonderful.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. That's good. You partied for opening day yesterday. You worked a little bit yesterday, but ultimately not too bad of a Monday for you, I feel like. I mean,
no, it was a good
hang
Monday.
out with friends, catch some baseball, get excited, all that fun business.
Yeah. No, yesterday was a good Monday.
Oh, good. I'm excited to hear that. How was the atmosphere inside of Miller Park yesterday? Some folks were saying it was not as full as they thought it was going to be.
Yeah, the 400 level?
Yeah, the top one
Yeah,
there.
it wasn't very full at all, actually. A lot of open spots. There's a lot of people in the parking lot, though, like, once I started actually moving in, because I probably didn't get in until half hour after the game started, because I was in an intense game of bags.
Ah, we played some bags here last night as well,
I saw.
too. Thought of you. I was like, oh, Jaymee, you should be here hitting the bags.
The bags.
We missed you. It was a fun time, though. Well, we need to get right to it this morning because we've got a big story to lead off. Tony Romo officially announcing just a little while ago that he is going to be retiring from the sport of football. He is going to go into broadcasting, more than likely with CBS as well. Some folks say it's surprising. They thought he was going to go sign with the Texans. Other folks were, hoping that he was going to maybe return again to the Cowboys and as that backup mentor role to Dak Prescott. But Tony Romo officially done and gone. Jaymee, your thoughts when you hear this news right away this morning?
I think I thought when we had talked a couple of weeks ago, we were more leaning towards Cutler being a broadcaster in a couple more years out of Romo. So that's a little shocking, I guess.
Yeah.
But probably a smart move by his end.
That is the truth. That is the truth. I mean, because in professional sports, as soon as you hit that like 30 to 35 range, you're basically considered old and washed up and not very good anymore. And Tony Romo, of course, has had the injuries the last couple of years. Now he's finally back trying to rehab, and I think he's realized that he's made more than enough money to be just fine, and he can continue to make a lot more money in broadcasting because they pay ridiculous amounts of money for broadcasters.
Well, and everybody
nowadays.
wants him. CBS, Fox, NBC,
Exactly. More than likely.
Now he's a hot commodity.
He is, and he's going to have to play the free agent market in a whole nother way, basically. But from all the reports that I've seen and heard, he is going to be probably be signing with CBS as their second guy to Jim Nantz up in the booth. He'll replace Phil Simms. I'm curious to see what Tony Romo as a broadcaster can do, honestly. I don't know. I've never really heard him speak a lot, in all honesty. So I guess I don't know what the realistic expectations are here for a guy like Tony Romo to be out in the broadcast world now.
It's nice that he realized, too, I'm getting old. I have a family. I need to retire instead of just being money hungry.
Exactly.
It's nice.
And that's what sometimes so many
Refreshing.
of these quarterbacks and just players in any professional sport get so wrapped up in. It's like, oh, I've got to keep playing just because I want to keep making money. It's like, guys, you've been playing for 10-plus years. You've already made sometimes over $100 million total. Right. It's time to move on. It's time to give some other young guy who's had a lifelong dream like you used to have when you first came into the league
15
the same
years
opportunity.
ago.
Yeah, exactly. Give somebody else an opportunity to get out there and finally experience the wonderfulness that is professional sports.
Right, I agree.
Jeff says good morning to us on Facebook. Good to hear from you, Jeff. Let us know your thoughts about Tony Romo retiring. Do you think it's a good idea for Tony? Do you think it's a bad idea? If you support a team that was hoping to sign Tony Romo, are you disappointed this morning as well, too, now that you hear about Tony Romo? And ultimately, do you think he's going to be a good broadcaster as well, too? I mean, really, I feel like there's going to be some people divided on that. Phil Simms is very matter-of-fact in the sense of like, well, I'll just throw it at you and see what happens. And so I have no idea what to expect with Tony Romo. Those color commentators can be made fun of a lot of times with the way they go about their commentating. So we'll have to see about that, basically. Brew says, good morning, digging the new backdrop. Thank you very much, Brew. We appreciate it. The morning Brew. Hitting it up here. Brew, we like your name so much that we needed it big and bold right behind us, basically. So it's like Morning Brew. We need to put a little beard or something, I feel like. I think that would be very needed. I don't know where would we put that on the B in Brew?
W.
On the W.
Yeah.
Little beard
It's a bigger letter.
I like that idea. Brew's got a big beard, so that makes a lot of sense. Jeff says it certainly was time for Tony Romo. He'd become fragile and risked permanent injury. That is ultimately true, and I think that's one big thing that people forget with professional athletes is like, listen, even if though you retire at 35, you still have a good 40 to 60 years of your life left. So don't completely ruin yourself. I mean, how many athletes do you see that played way too long and are, have brain diseases or can barely walk in a straight line anymore because of injuries they sustained early in their career?
Right, and that, like I just said, he has taken all that into consideration, and he's still going to be working and still making a decent amount of money, I'm sure.
Right.
So good for him. And it was probably hard. Like, it's probably hard to be like,
It has to be.
he loves football. So for him to be like, this was great, but I'm out. Like, I'm sure that was difficult. So good for him.
I agree. So if you're just joining us, Tony Romo officially announcing his retirement from football this morning, probably late last night, early this morning. He certainly made an impact on the game of football. I don't want to say he made a positive or a negative impact, but I certainly think that he didn't hurt the game of football, that's for sure, in his overall career. Brew goes on to say here on Facebook, he says, might as well retire before getting hurt. Question, though, he said, if he continued to play, was he going to break any new records for his career? That I don't officially know, Brew. I know that guys like Troy Aikman have a pretty strong hold on what Dallas has done from a passing records perspective, so I don't necessarily know off the top of my head if Tony Romo was close to breaking any records, so I don't necessarily, some people live for the record. That's why some guys ultimately end up playing way longer than they need to, is they just want to be that one
Their
guy
name.
that breaks the record. Look at me, I'm the Iron Man that broke this record. And I think that can ultimately be their downfall as well, too, if they take too much time to try to hone in on a single record. It's like, listen, yes, you want to be that guy etched in the books, but is it really worth
after
it?
how long?
Is it really worth it? I don't necessarily think so sometimes. So, but yes, if you're just tuning in, Tony Romo retiring, let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit that share button as well, too, so that way the rest of the world can continue to enjoy what Jamie and I have got coming at you this morning. Moving on from Tony Romo, we're going to get to our correspondent here in just a moment, Nkwa Asonye. It is the Morning Brew here on Brew Sports. UNC winning the national championship last night. A very big game from them. We'll get to him in just a moment. I want to talk to you, Jamie, about what else is potentially brewing this morning in the sports world. You brought up a great story that we had talked about. We had teased kind of about a week or so back in terms of the 2018 Olympics and hockey, of course, because that's what you're in love with, basically,
Right.
is hockey. But some new developments about what's going on at the 2018 Olympics.
They will not be participating.
Really?
Yeah, and as I've read up on it and as I've thought about it, well, first off, by them not participating in the next Olympics in South Korea, I believe they are not going to participate in the 2020 or the
2018?
Yeah, or the 2020.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So my biggest so the reason that they're saying they don't want to do it is because they don't want to take time from regular season hockey
Right.
to go to play the Olympics. But I want to know if, because they had such a bad experience the last, in Sochi, if that has anything to do with it. Like, they don't want to put the players at risk. I obviously don't know what it's like in South Korea.
Right.
But it's not like playing the Olympics in
It's a little different, I'd like to feel
Chicago
like.
or wherever
Yeah.
it could be. So I wonder if it's more that rather than they're just using the excuse of the fact that they don't want to take time away from the regular season. So I think it's sad.
That does make a lot of sense. Debbie actually asked you a quick question. First of all, she says we need to get more coffee for my girl, Jay.
Yeah.
She says the girl with a U. She also says, hey, what's needed for the ads to clinch a playoff spot?
1 point. We need 1 point, and we need Cleveland to lose.
Well, Cleveland's good at disappointing their fans, so hopefully they do that.
They won the Calder Cup last year, though.
Well,
Yeah. So we
Cleveland
just
as a
need 1
whole.
point.
So they don't fit into the mold of failing Cleveland franchises then. That's a little disappointing. I was a little hopeful for that. Oh, well. I'm over it. Either way. So the Admirals apparently there, as you hear, Debbie, just a mere point away from exception, from excitement. Jeff says this is a stupid move by the NHL.
I agree.
He says they need to continue to expose hockey to a new audience. He said it is all about the money. Obviously, the owners don't want to suspend the season. Are you suspending the season, though, if you're taking your best players and saying you're promoting your brand internationally? I mean, how many times are you going to hear the announcer say, NHL player this, or he plays for this? Like, you're still branding your team, and more eyes likely are going to be on the Olympics than they are going to be on a random, NBC Saturday night hockey game.
Right. And and they usually have that week off, like a week off anyways, because they have the All-Star break.
Right.
And that's I'm pretty sure is around the same time the Olympics usually take place. I think it's sad. I think it's cool to say that you went to the Olympics. I think it's cool to say that someone from your team played on the Olympics. I think it's sad that
they're
not
cheating
going to
these
do that.
players out of being able to represent their country, which I think ultimately is what a lot of athletes, when they get into the sport, want to do. And that's what really bothers me the most about all of this, is because you're cheating these guys that have trained basically their entire lives, and now they're saying, all right, guys, you can't do it. I want to know, can you get out of it? Can you still go and play for your country even if you aren't in the NHL? Like, how is the U.S. going to be represented in hockey now?
It'll be someone from juniors.
That's the worst possible representation of hockey.
Yeah. I wonder if they're going to let people is it just guys that are signed in the NHL? Like, can someone in the AHL or ECHL play? Like, I don't know. Or is it anybody that's in a professional league? Like, I wonder if it's just NHL players and people that have NHL contracts, or if it'll be everybody in the professional.
I think that the way that they're trying to do it is definitely the wrong way about it. I mean, you're trying to promote hockey internationally, and here you have the biggest league in the world. It's kind of like almost in soccer, if the English Premier League, who is kind of, just to put in context, like the NFL basically. Like, that's where you want to go play professional soccer, is in England.
Okay.
Kind of would be like if the English Premier League said, listen, we're not going to release any of our players to go play in the World Cup. They basically control every single elite player in the entire world. Even the non-elite players, they control virtually everybody, because the Premier League is so big. You've got maybe 7 to 10 players that are really, really big that don't play in England. But aside from that, if England just all of a sudden said, yeah, we're just not going to let any of our Premier League players go play in the World Cup, the quality would just be absolutely wretched. There would almost be nobody left to go play. And that's why I'm worried about the NHL doing something like this.
Well, the whole purpose of the Olympics is to have the best of the best, right?
Exactly.
So now you're just going to result to the guys that play in Europe, like they're going to play.
It's going to be an awful product.
Like the whole purpose of the Olympics is to see the best compete against the best.
Exactly.
So it's sad. I wish that they would be allowed to.
It certainly worries me, and I think that this is going to ultimately come back to bite the NHL in the butt. They're saying it's all about the money. I think that they're ultimately going to cost themselves way more money than what they actually would have, because, I mean, this is an opportunity for jersey sales to go up. This is an opportunity for your league to continue to be promoted on an international level, and they're basically just looking the Olympic Committee in the eye and saying, no, thank you, we don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
That's just an absolutely idiotic move, in my opinion.
I agree.
All right, let's get to the basketball. Let's get to the greatness that is Nkwa Asonye. He is a phenomenal correspondent here for us on the Brew Sports Network. He has the opportunity to join us now. Nkwa, good morning, sir. How are you today?
Good morning.
Oh, It is. It very much is, honestly. I wanted to get your quick reaction, Nkwa, about Tony Romo retiring. I mean, you're a man that covers many a sport here for us on the Brew Sports Network, but your thoughts really quickly about Tony Romo retiring. I find it I mean, you probably heard what Jaymee and I were saying about the surprises that go along with this move as a whole, but I mean, Tony Romo has been a player that has certainly shaped the last decade or so of Cowboys football. I think he's made them relevant again. But I'm curious to get your thoughts about Tony Romo retiring now.
Really, I thought he was going to give it one more try, and it wasn't even about his injury history. I thought that he deserved the chance to show the world that he really could do it, even after the Cowboys moved on to Dak Prescott. Now, whether or not this is just his reaction to not being the Cowboys starting quarterback anymore, or whether he really felt like his health was an issue, he made the decision that he made for his family. And to be honest, it's a tough one to fault, especially since he's still getting paid. He's going to make $10 million this year, $8 million the next. So he's not really taking any sort of risk by stepping away from the field when he can preserve his health and make more money elsewhere.
Those guaranteed contracts are a beautiful thing. That certainly is the case for sure. But looking to last night, going into the college basketball world, the University of North Carolina Tar Heels, a 71-65 victory over Gonzaga down at the University of Phoenix Stadium. From all accounts, everybody that I've talked to, and even myself from watching the game, this was an ugly game. it was just an ugly game of basketball, and UNC ultimately proved that they were the stronger of the two kids on the playground, but not aesthetically pleasing, not really just the beautiful style of basketball we were used to seeing in championship games. What did you make of the overall aesthetic appeal of the game last night?
I think that the officiating crew was flat out unprepared for the flow of the game. And I say that because you already knew that between Kornowski and Collins, Meeks and Justin Jackson, that there were going to be big bodies involved in this game. You knew from the way that these two teams played that post play was extremely important in what both team has to offer offensively. And yet they weren't allowed to play. Some of the foul calls that came across in the second half, like what Zach Collins fouled out of with 5 minutes left in the game, it was bewildering. There wasn't even any contact. It's almost as if anything incidental led to a whistle being blown. And I think it just took away from what should have been a much better game. The fact that it was still close on both sides is a credit to both how well those teams are coached and how hard those kids fought. But that game was totally cheapened by those who held the whistles.
And I completely agree with you on that one. It was annoying. I was listening to the game on my way home after we finished our coverage of it here on Brew Sports last night, and I was getting annoyed, and I was counting the whistles even as I was driving. I'm like, I couldn't even make it like a city block without at least 2 whistles being blown. I was just absolutely bewildered by this, and there's really no easy way to change officiating in the sense of, like, once you make that one call, when that one guy bumps the way he did, you're going to be heckled if you don't make that same call. So, but and then in a championship game, do you almost tell the referees to swallow the whistle a little bit at certain times to say, just let the guys play, stop, making the game slow down every 30 to 40 seconds because that one guy looked at that guy another way and you had to blow a whistle on it so that way you could keep going to the line. It slowed the game down. People were really disinterested about it, and I'd be even curious to hear what the people inside the stadium thought of it because
It goes for a tap, gets tapped in the head, and that's a foul. It was just very, very inconsistent, and that's one thing the NCAA has to fix because you had your biggest game of the year become rendered unwatchable. That can't happen.
Looking here at some of the stats from last night as we're talking with Nkwa Asonye here on the Morning Brew, neither team shooting exceptionally well, whether it be from the line or from the floor as a whole. 33% was the best for Gonzaga all night, 35.5% for UNC. The product, I feel like, wasn't really there either. Even if you had taken away the whistles, neither team shot exceptionally well. Karnowski was shut down a lot for most of the night for Gonzaga. And even some of the bigger players that we were hoping to see from UNC didn't ultimately end up showing up last night. Do you think that this game was just so overhyped with UNC trying to get redemption and Gonzaga trying to be the Cinderella team even though they were a 1 seed? Do you think that played into the fact of how these players actually performed on the court last night?
Honestly, I think it did. For UNC, they were finally back. And I think, especially throughout that first half, they were almost too hungry. And I don't like saying that as a coach, but it's almost as if they wanted it so bad that their shots were just awful. Theo Pinson's a pretty decent shooter. Some of the misses he had were flat out ugly. They were really, really bad. And on the other side for Gonzaga, pretty much the same deal. Nigel Williams-Goss picked the wrong time to have a clunker. And his turnover late in the game, that all goes back to how you deal with pressure. And when you add in the outside pressure of what everyone expected of this game, that's a lot for anybody to handle, much less anyone from the age of 18 to 22.
That's correct, yeah.
Sticking on the basketball topic, but switching a little bit, we were going to talk about the Georgetown head coach vacancy. However, they have filled the position with alum Patrick Ewing. Your thoughts on him becoming head coach?
What happened on Monday afternoon was the equivalent of being given the map to buried treasure, saying, now we don't need the map, digging in places you have no business digging, and falling upon that spot anyway. That's what happened. Because here's what the reality of Georgetown basketball is. And for full disclosure, I went to the George Washington University, where I wouldn't call us rivals because they've refused to play George Washington since the 1982-1983 season. But, it's not necessarily the most happy relationship between the two.
Healthy rivalry. It's always a good thing.
Exactly. But with that all being said, when Georgetown made the decision to fire JT3, John Thompson III, I was surprised that it happened at all. You got to understand, the legendary coach John Thompson Jr., personally one of my favorite coaches, still has an office on campus and still is very much involved in the day-to-day activities of the Georgetown basketball program. And let's face it, he made Georgetown basketball. So there's no one on campus, barring everyone sort of banding together and pushing him out, which makes no sense, to take away his reach over that program. Now let's take it a step further. Some of the names that we heard in the very beginning part of this coaching search didn't make sense. Mike Bray is a George Washington graduate, and he went to DeMatha. And thanks to a great breakdown on Deadspin, if you guys get a chance to look at it, the rivalry between John Thompson Jr. and Morgan Wooten, both local head coaches of high schools at the time, they didn't like each other, and Mike Bray went to DeMatha. So him coming back to Georgetown anyway would be it probably wouldn't happen.
True. That is very true.
And either way, he's at Notre Dame. Notre Dame with a similar tradition that has also thrown a lot of money into its basketball program. There's no reason for him to leave. Taking the Georgetown job wouldn't be an upgrade. Same deal for Shaka Smart, who they were chasing. Shaka Smart's the highest paid state employee in the state of Texas with no income tax, with a lower cost of living, and playing in the Big 12. He's going to take all that and move to D.C. in the Big East? That doesn't make any sense either. Tommy Amaker would have been a great fit for them, but he didn't want to deal with the politics that is Georgetown basketball. They bungled this every single step of the way, and they still managed to come up with who I think is a decent choice. Could they have gone better? Who knows? I don't think we'll ever know. But in terms of finding someone with coaching experience and someone who is so closely aligned with the school and Patrick Ewing, they got lucky.
They did. No, and that's really what's really the only words you can really say about it, honestly, is that they got lucky. I mean, how often do you get to land a Hall of Famer and an alum like that was so successful at the same time? And that was one of the things too. I don't follow college basketball as closely as maybe you and others do that live for basketball, which is completely fine. But you can always count on like the 5 or 6 names every year to be in the tournament. The Kentuckys, the Kansases. And I always thought Georgetown was a very consistent and very exciting program. And then when I wasn't following very closely until tournament time, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, Georgetown's not here this year. I wonder what's going on. And then I looked at the standings and I'm like, oh, they were 14 and 18 this year. I was like, holy cow. Without really following what's going on, I was like, what in the world's going on with Georgetown basketball? I was a little surprised by that because they've been consistent 1 seeds and high favorites almost every time that they're in the tournament. But this seems to have apparently been a downward progression. Is Patrick Ewing going to be the guy that is going to kind of be like that Frank Martin was for South Carolina, that's going to come in and just really be that catalyst to help push them and maybe surprise people next year coming into the tournament? Or is this going to be a 3 to 5 year building project for Patrick Ewing? And are they going to give him that much time to actually build as well, too?
I think it would be totally wrong not to. We have to understand that the legacy for former NBA players to come back and coach, it's not always a smooth transition. Now, the difference between Patrick Ewing and someone like, say, Chris Mullin over at St. John's is that Ewing has been on an NBA sideline for the past decade and change as an assistant coach. So he knows the ins and outs of the game as well, I think, as any other coach in the Big East. What he's going to need to deal with are the politics of college sports in general. And like I mentioned in my previous answer, Georgetown has its fair share of political minefields to get through just because Georgetown basketball is Georgetown basketball. Couple that with what recruiting is now. You have to get an assistant staff who know how to navigate through the middlemen, the coaches, how to get to the elite prospects and still play the game clean, because you already seen what happened to UMass and Memphis when John Calipari left. You don't want that same sort of thing happening. As far as whether they're going to win right away, doubt it. It's really tough because you already have a few people graduating. I mean, they're out of eligibility. And before Ewing was hired, 1, 2, 3 players had transferred that were rotational players. LJ Peak declared for the NBA draft. This was all before JT3 was fired in the first place.
Right.
So that roster is totally gutted. They're going to need time to make Georgetown basketball thing locally again. It's very tough for a lot of these seemingly landmark state schools to keep some of their best talent at home because they've been home all their lives and they want to see other places, other people, things of that nature. I think it's going to take time to make Georgetown basketball relevant locally and more appealing for a very rich area for high school basketball. D.C., Maryland, Virginia. It's a very rich high school basketball area. But it's going to take some time for them to reclaim that power if they do at all. But having Patrick Ewing as your head coach definitely helps.
Sometimes I have a hard time agreeing with them firing coaches all the time. Like, sometimes you just get dealt a bad hand, right? Like, you just have a group of players.
There's only so much you can do.
Right. Like, he can only lead them so far. Once they're on the court, like, they should know what they're doing. They're 21 years old, and they've been doing this for 18 years. I sometimes just don't agree with the firing of them. And I think the teams that we, Georgetown and, like, to coach there, you're going to have a lot of pressure. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
So people expect you get hired to win games. If you don't win games, you get fired. Like, we all know that, but I don't think that it's necessarily always the coach's fault. So I have a really hard time agreeing with the firing of them because, like I said, sometimes you just have bad players. Do you agree with that? Do you think that it all comes down to coaching? Do you think, sometimes it's like siblings. Siblings don't always get along and they don't always mesh together.
Can't fire your brother or sister, unfortunately.
Right, it's the same on a team. Like, it might not always be the coach's fault. It can just be the group of players that he or she has dealt with.
That's a really great point, and it goes really back to coaching in general. One thing that I have learned from not just experience but also talking and being mentored is that coaching is about more than just X's and O's. If it was all about, running plays, you do this, you do that, whatever, anybody could do it. But it's really about managing people and getting them to buy into who you are and really what you're selling as a program. In Georgetown's case specifically, over the years, they would recruit some pretty high-level athletes, but they weren't really built for the Princeton offense that Georgetown was trying to run. And even so, you remember Georgetown being a school where big men went and big men dominated. Patrick Ewing, who's coaching there, was one of them. Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo. It was big man U. But even after that Final Four run, you still had Roy Hibbert.
True.
But somewhere along the line, Georgetown was no longer the sturdy presence inside. Plus, those first-round double-digit seed upsets really hurt John Thompson III in the long run. So when we look at Georgetown specifically, it was time to make a change, in my opinion. I don't like the way they went about it. I personally think they really could have given him one more year, but that is what it is. But in terms of firing coaches in general, you look at a situation like what happened in Indiana with Tom Crean, that was deplorable. And I think sometimes programs need to take a solid look in the mirror and realize who they were and who they are two completely different things. You look at somebody like Tom Crean, who made his fair share of mistakes while he was in Bloomington, but was a standout leader in the community, and his teams won games. He went to 4 Sweet 16s and has 2 players in the NBA that I can name right now, certainly more. and all of a sudden he was rendered not good enough because they went to the NIT, I think that's ridiculous. Even under Roy Williams, who just won his 3rd national championship, he had 2 teams, one with Tyler Hansborough on it, that went to the NIT.
Right.
Sometimes programs just really need to get over themselves and cut out the nonsense.
Very true. All right, Nkwa, well, we appreciate you jumping on here with us on the Morning Brew. Where can people find you on the social media universe to keep an eye on what you got going on?
Best thing I got is Twitter at N_ASONYE.
Awesome, Nkwa. Thanks so much for taking the time this morning, sir. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, folks.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon. There goes Nkwa Asonye here with us on the Morning Brew. Good to hear from him. Always a fun time to rekindle what's going on in the sports world. And Nkwa, one of the very best and brightest that we've got here at the Brew Sports Network. Good to hear about the general perception of the coaches being fired is always hard, and I've always made those cases in general for coaches that get let go far too early. It's like, listen, I mean, you can bring in the best coach in the world, but if the players that he has sucks, you can't blame him for having a losing season first year. I mean, Cleveland, I feel like, has been the best example of that. They have had consistently bad teams, but they've held on to their coaches for longer than you think most people should. It's like, wow, they only won 4 games again this year. Well, fire the coach. Like, if you really look at it internally, if you're an organization, be like, look, we don't have a lot of good players. Like, there's only so much we can do. It says in the movies we can't somehow like catch fire and then just ride into the sunset as Super Bowl champions. Like, that's just not how it's gonna work.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like too that there's more than just coaching that goes involved or that goes with coaching. Like, there's life lessons and maybe he's a good teacher. You know, like all these things. And Jeff comments and says, who recruits the players? It's not technically, I don't think it's the head coach, at least from what I understand. Maybe I'm wrong.
Right. No, I agree with you on that one. I mean, that's always my favorite part about certain teams, that as soon as like a team loses a game, like, well, fire the coach. I'm like, coach wasn't out on the field shooting the three-pointer, or wasn't out there kicking the final ball or trying to throw the pitch. I'm like, how how can you justify that? I mean, when you see coaches that literally get hired and then are fired like 5 games into the season, I'm like, really? Like, that's what it was going to be. Like, you just give them 5 games or you get them 12 games. Like, that makes absolutely no sense to me. Like, I think a coach should get the entire season, you know, if they're a brand new coach. If they've been there a while, then obviously fire them anytime you want to, of course, because then you actually know who they are at that point. But if you are a coach that has literally just been hired, you were part of the, you know, the off-season transitions and all that fun stuff, and then all of a sudden you're just let go after 5 games because, you started 0-5 or 1-4, like, that just seems absolutely criminal to me personally.
I feel bad for those coaches because they're taking time to like learn the team and learn the organization and become part of it for them to just be like, bye, peace out.
Nope, no thank you.
See ya.
That's always the biggest thing that frustrates me, especially when the fans are like, yeah, fire the coach. I'm like, or what about that player that missed that shot and that shot and that shot, or, you know, missed that tackle? Coach, you know, that's always my big thing for Packer fans that are like, fire McCarthy because his defense is terrible. Or fire Dom Capers. I'm like, do you guys realize that it's the player's inability to make a damn tackle?
Right.
Dom Capers in his 65 or 7-year-old self isn't out there playing strong safety against the Colts trying to make a tackle. Like, he is in the booth calling what he thinks is the best, and it's the inability of the players to run the plays. Those are the ones that should be being. Why I never see people saying, "Wow, trade him, cut him." Like, everybody's always just fire the coach, fire the coach, fire the coach. That doesn't do anybody any good.
Right.
It really doesn't.
He's out of a job now, and they don't have a coach. So yeah,
it's like great, good.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
I completely agree with you on that one. Definitely something that I find that needs to be adjusted in sports at some point. Jeff says, but who recruits the players? That is a very solid point, Jeff, in terms of, why fire the coach if you're the one that is recruiting the players. And I get that, but at the same time, you can recruit the best possible people, but if they still decide to not follow what you're doing, that still is the issue at the end of the day.
Yeah, and these people that are playing are adults, right?
Yes.
So your coach wants you to do one thing, but you disagree and you feel that you want to do another. Like, ultimately, you can do whatever the heck you want.
It's true. That is really what it is. I mean, there have been numerous times, even in this career that I had from a playing perspective, where I would see teammates, like the coach would talk to us before the game, and then we don't do hardly at all what the coach talks about just because of whatever good reasons or bad reasons, and then we get reamed for it. But then it's the coach that ultimately always gets, sent off, a season or two later because his winning percentage wasn't that great. But it's like, if you really break it down, it was like, Jim's ability over there to not, throw a ball, and it was Bob's ability to drop that pass over there. Like, why? Those are the reasons. Like, it literally is so much focus on these players, or on these coaches, to determine if there's going to be success or not on these teams. And I get it. They're the ones that are the face of the franchise. That makes total sense. But if Sidney Crosby goes out and, fails to score on 3 different rebound attempts and the Penguins lose the game, Penguins coach is going to be the one that's going to be in the heat of like, wow, coach, couldn't win the game last night. It's like, if I was a coach, I'd be like, yeah, Crosby couldn't put the puck in the freaking net. Like, that's on him. Like, he's going to sit next game because we work on this numerous times a practice, and he can't do his job. That's all he's getting paid to do is put the puck in the net, and he's not getting paid. He's not doing that.
Yeah, and usually, typically at these practices too, like these guys are working on fundamentals. They're working on shooting, whether it's basketball or whatever,
soccer, anything. Yeah,
right. They already know how to play on a team.
Exactly.
So it comes down to them. Like, how much coaching can you really do?
I don't.
A game, because
that's the big thing for me, that I just am like, I don't know how good. I mean, there's only so much you can do. You give the pregame speech. You're the one out there yelling, of course, during the game itself, being like, go here, run there. But like, ultimately, it's all about the players. Are they going to actually do what you're asking them to do? And that ultimately doesn't always end up being the case. I mean, you see managers getting sacked in soccer all the time. They call it sacking, which I always thought was interesting. But you see managers getting sacked all the time in the Premier League because they, can't win 10 games in a row, or they put the wrong players on the team, or they put whatever the issues are that people decide to justify. But at the same time, these aren't the guys that are out there missing easy goals. Like, I get it. Your team lost. It's a results-driven business. Understand that. But at the same time, if your players that are on the field who are being paid lots of money can't put a ball in the back of the net or can't make a save, that's on them. They should be the ones receiving the issue, the repercussions, not the manager, who is, in his opinion, and most people's opinions, doing the very best he can with what he's got.
Right, and the manager doesn't have pull on what happens in a game or at practice or whatever. Brew says, isn't it the coach's job to be pushing them in practice? Yeah, and he could be. He or she could be pushing them in practice.
Yes.
But practice isn't a game. Like,
exactly.
They're practicing
There's only so much you can do
to win. If they lose,
right,
it's not because the coach isn't pushing them. A coach isn't like, let's take it easy today.
That's the thing. If there was actual footage of the coaches screwing around at practice, being like, okay, guys, let's just mess around today. You're team's choice. Do what you want to do. Mess around, be crazy today. But that's not what's going on.
Right.
These coaches, for the most part, are pushing their teams as hard as they possibly can. Yet they're always the first one out the door. That was one of the big reasons that I never really stayed in coaching very much, is because I, as a coach, am out there giving the best of my knowledge and my abilities to my players, and then my players would not always translate that over, but I'm still the one that gets the questions after the game too, being like, why have you not been winning, coach? What's been going on? I'm like, but you don't want to be that guy that also calls out your players all the time and tries to look like you're deflecting blame at the same time.
Right.
So there's a lot of politics, a lot of craziness that goes into something like that. Moving on with the show here, we need to talk about the bracket challenge as a whole, because we do have our official 1st through 3.
Who got second place?
Second place is Justin Bradford, our hockey correspondent from Nashville.
You got to take me on a date.
So there we go. Is that what we're officially? I thought we were giving him a T-shirt, but I mean, if he wants to take you on a date, I guess.
I like dinner, so.
Winner's choice on that one. So our official 1st through 3 brackets here. The very first place is Trevor Burke. So Trevor's triumph. He wins by he finished in the 98th percentile.
Nice.
He wins the $100 from us here at Brew Sports. So a big congratulations to you, Trevor.
He was in second yesterday, and I was going to be like, it looks like you can't go back to wherever you're from, Buffalo.
Wherever you're doing with your life, get out of here.
You'll have to stay.
So he'll get $100 for winning the Brew Sports Bracket Challenge. Justin finishes here in second place with a grand total of 1,220 points. He apparently has the fielder's choice of whether he wants to take Jaymee on a date whenever he's back in town, or whenever Jamie's in Nashville, or if he wants the Brew Sports T-shirt. And then I don't know. I don't know who this third place person is because I'm not friends with them, at least not that I know of based off of their username, but Conryl, or Conryl, you came in third place, so you get a Brew Sports t-shirt as well, too. So based off of who you are, if you are tuning in, make sure you send either us a message on the Brew Sports Facebook page or send me a Facebook message or tweet at me at Baxter Colburn. Let me know so we can get a Brew Sports t-shirt off to you as soon as possible. Just a great overall tournament from everybody that took place. I ended up finishing in 9th place. Jaymee, you finished in a 3-way tie for 13th place.
Ooh.
I was curious to see where my wife finished because she kept asking me every once in a while. She finished in 35th. Not the best for her. She had Duke going all the way. So
we had, what, 42 41?
We had 41 people overall that participated in the bracket challenge. So
where did Brew sit?
Let's see.
Not last.
No, he's not last. Where are you, Brew? I just saw him. Brew's Cinderella story, 37th.
Hey,
in the bracket challenge. Close enough. Close enough for some folks there. But a big congratulations to Trevor, who wins our bracket challenge. He wins $100 thanks to Brew Sports. Justin, he finishes in 2nd place. He gets a T-shirt or a date with Jaymee. Probably a T-shirt. And then whoever you are, finish in 3rd place. Conryl, Conryl, or your username is CR505436. You won a Brew Sports T-shirt as well. So make sure to give us the correct information so we can get that off to you. So appreciate that. Congratulations and thanks for playing, everybody. It's been a great time. Been a lot of fun. A lot of good stuff. Great stuff. Yeah. Did you enjoy your bracket challenge? Did you have a good time playing?
Yeah, I tried really hard.
You were in first place for a long time.
And it wasn't my fault. It was the team's fault. Mm-hmm.
That's how you're going to justify this, huh?
Yep.
Okay. You do you. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who this mystery Conryl person is, no idea, honestly. No idea. But this is one of the more decent finishes I've ever had in a bracket challenge. Could have been better. Could have been worse, but 9th isn't awful. I could accept that.
You're not even in double digits. You're doing okay.
Yeah.
Out of 40, like you're 4th.
In the top 4th.
Yeah.
Of the entire tournament. That's not bad.
Not bad at all.
Yeah. Jeff followed up a comment here on what we were talking about on Facebook about coaching earlier. He says, I agree that players are part of the equation and adults are young and immature at 21. Coaches' jobs include the ability to pull a diverse group together to perform as a team. I'm not a big proponent of junking the coach, but ...
Yeah, but it's not just college that we're talking about. It's also coaching like LeBron James. Like, he's a 30-year-old man.
Yeah, it's more so about
he doesn't care.
Professional sports as it is college sports. That's really what I thought, personally. So a fun story here from TMZ Sports. I always look to them just for at least one make me feel better about my life story for the day, just because, not that I live a crazy life, but it's always funny to just tune in and see how stupid some people actually are. Floyd Mayweather.
Oh boy.
So I'm going to just lead with Floyd Mayweather there and let that sit for a second. Got into an argument with referees at his daughter's cheerleading competition because they feel that he felt that the judges cheated his daughter's team from winning the championship. And his daughter is 12 years old. They finished in 2nd place. This was out at the big Jams Cheer and Dance competition in Irvine, California. But there is a video that has emerged of Floyd Mayweather up in the judges' faces after the final announcements were made. Apparently, there was a gentleman that was down in the heat of the moment that was hearing everything Floyd was saying, a lot of swear words, of course, but then he also dropped the gem saying, I fund this program. So basically insinuating that because he funds the program, his daughter's team should have won because he gives them lots of money. Floyd Mayweather needs to calm down, and he needs to go get his face beat in by Conor McGregor, so that way we can all just be quiet and move along.
Also, the hardest thing about judging, like about a competition, is that like it's different than actually seeing a game or a fight, right? So you start at 100 and you dock points. You know, it was too long, that's 5 points. Your motions aren't tight enough, that's another point. Like, it's very much, I don't know if I want to say like biased, but like one judge can screw you over.
Oh, yeah.
I feel that they should knock the highest on the lowest judge score and leave the middle.
That makes a lot of sense to me personally. I mean, I've judged pageants before, but I've never judged a dance competition. I know there's a lot that goes into it, obviously, but yeah, that even from a parent perspective, I don't think I would probably be frustrated if my team, my son or daughter's team lost, but I don't think I would be up in the official's face, especially even if I'm a benefactor, saying like, I pay for this tournament, I should, like you're basically asking and acknowledging that you're hoping that the referees are going to give you the title because you're almost paying them off in a sense.
Yeah, I feel like you can't be mad, but I also feel like the system is skewed.
It is. Well, there's so many cheeky things that take place behind the scenes that people don't even think about to an extent, but this certainly being one of them. So I almost want to think now going forward, if I'm an official that is going to be a part of something like this, in the future, I want to make sure that the money, no parents involved are funding this event. And I get it. Like, you certainly need money to fund your events, but you don't want that to be a deciding factor if you don't pick their team. I mean, you don't want your officials to feel like they have to be biased towards a certain, team or player because, well, mommy or daddy is giving us thousands of dollars to make this whole thing possible. That, for me, obviously, is where the line has to be drawn, because then that is a conflict of interest.
Yeah, I agree.
So don't do that. Don't be those parents. Nobody
don't
likes
give money to people.
Yes, keep your money. That's what you ultimately need to do. If you learn anything from us today, learn that you just should keep your money. Jaymee, are you having a terrible Tuesday?
Not yet. It's
Not
probably
yet.
going to get there, though.
Why is that?
This is rough. It is.
It's rough.
Opening day
just rough.
really takes a toll on you.
So many baseball games to watch, I'm sure, is what you're referencing.
Uh-huh.
I was just going to ask if you had anything that would strike you at all as being as a terrible Tuesday or anything.
I do. Donald Trump is probably having a terrible Tuesday.
Donald Trump?
Yeah.
How could he be having a terrible Tuesday?
Because he said no to throwing out the first pitch, and then the Nationals game, however these people get these massive, massive banners into
Tifos.
The ballparks is mind-boggling. But in the middle of the Nationals game, some fans dropped a banner that said "Impeach Trump." So,
Wow.
Not that he gives two.
I was say he probably doesn't
fantastic,
care about it, honestly, but that's a little hot and heavy.
But if
isn't
it said like "Screw Brew Sports," like probably be upset. That'd suck.
It'd be coming for you, national fans.
Yeah.
No one likes your franchise
How
anyway.
do they get these in there? Like, if you have it in a backpack, right? Like, this
Yeah.
is a massive. There's 10 people holding it, or
Yeah.
whatever. Massive sign. You can't even bring a pocket knife. Do you know what I mean? Like,
You can't murder somebody with a sign, at least not
right
quickly.
But like, they know it's probably not going to say something nice.
I mean, that's the thing. From a security guard perspective, fans bring banners all the time. I mean, yeah, you're right, though. How do you get that in? Do you bring a duffel bag up and then be like, guys, like, if I'm a security guard and I see somebody walking up to the gates with a massive duffel bag, I'm going to be like, oh,
because they could have said
here?
something way more inappropriate. You know what I mean? Like, it could have just been like, F you.
And I'm sure security would have been informed of that. Or maybe they even had to, I think that security probably has certain regulations. Like, look, as long as you don't say, like, F you or you're full of, this or, you're whatever, sucker and all that fun business, like I think to an extent security can't tell you politically what you can and cannot do.
Okay.
I don't know for sure, but that would be my guess in that situation, that if I'm a security guard, I would probably either ask them, say, okay, what does it say, or show me the sign. You look at it, be like, okay, my political views aside, well, all right, it's not saying anything bad technically, but I mean, at the same time, is that your call, though, as a security guard, if you do look at it, to be like, guys, look, you can't say that about the president. Like, then that becomes a whole other news story, and then people start saying that security guards shouldn't have the rights to tell people how to live their lives, and it just can spiral basically out of control from there into some sort of a chaotic, stupid argument. It just gets messy.
Yeah.
But impeaching Trump in the nation's capital too. How fitting. Brew says signs are definitely allowed. The weather is terrible apparently up in the D.C. area where he is currently located.
Yeah, but it's massive. It's not like a poster board.
No, but you fold it up enough times.
Yeah,
Do you never fold your blankets at your house, Jaymee? You just let them flail about?
I do. Oh, excuse me.
Harold should learn how to fold.
No, he just sleeps on them.
Come on, Harold, get up, man.
Harry.
Stop lounging about.
Today, this is really weird, but he kept meowing, and I was like, shut up. Like, stop talking, and then he meowed back, and it sounded like he said, like, I don't care. And I was like, oh my God, cat's talking to me. And I was like, you need sleep.
You know that you're deprived of sleep when you think your cat is actually talking to you.
Cats don't talk.
They don't. We just lost all of our cat people. They're just like, how dare you? Somebody that may or may not be having a terrible Tuesday also in my book has to go to the man Tom Brady. Tom Brady finally getting his jersey back after it being stolen from the Super Bowl. It found in Mexico, of course. Trump takes full credit for the investigation, whatever you want to say to make a funny joke. But Tom Brady was at opening day yesterday for the Boston Red Sox. Decided to bring the jersey with him, holding it up, showing the fans, like, hey, got the jersey back. And then it got stolen again, right out of his hands, but by Rob Gronkowski. Rob Gronkowski flew out of the dugout, grabbed Brady's jersey, and ran around the diamond basically like a kid at the playground, being like, I got your jersey. And then Tom Brady actually made a pretty good tackle and brought Gronkowski to the ground in the infield, or actually right in the outfield of Fenway Park. It was rather entertaining and probably the most exercised either of those two have had in a while since Gronk had been on WrestleMania recently. But talk about the weekend that Rob Gronkowski has had. He was on WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Then he goes to Fenway to throw out a first pitch, steals Tom Brady's jersey. I mean, like, if there's a more untouchable man in the sports world right now.
Just the life of Gronk.
Like that. Which, I mean, and I think we've had this conversation before about whether or not you'd be all about that life from a douche level perspective for Rob Gronkowski. Would you be on board with the Rob Gronkowski?
Oh, yeah.
You'd be all about that?
Think about the size of our babies. They would be like
That's true.
Goliath.
He's like
babies.
6'7", 6'8". You're
Six?
6 footer.
Yeah, I'm a 6-footer.
You're a 6 footer.
Yeah. Oh, I'd be all about that. That's like the perfect amount of douche.
That is true.
He's a little douchey, something too douchey, but.
Love the douches.
But the fact that we would have Goliath babies.
That is true. You'd have those D1 babies, basically, as some people like to call it. Oh, boy. Funny stuff. Do we have a yes drama moment of the day at all?
I don't know if it's necessarily yes drama, but last week or 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how much I like when people during the NCAA, like they get trolled. Like
all
the
the
girl
time.
on the flute, the little kid crying, like whatever. There's a new guy, Adam Morrison, who played for Gonzaga. The memes about him and the Twitter comments are funny. They're like, he was white in the beginning of the game. He's just red, just fuming, like by the end of it. I don't know if that's drama-y enough, but if you check it out online, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, he was notorious for being just this big-haired, fuzzy, weird-looking kind of like 80s hippie when he played for Gonzaga, and now his sunburnt. I think he and Michael Phelps must have been hanging out because Michael Phelps was also equally as red as this gentleman, but it's just kind of funny to see something like that. There's always that one moment, and I actually saw, I don't remember who it is, but I saw somebody on Twitter, or somebody posted a picture in some broadcasting group I'm on. She's a reporter, and she was in front of that Northwestern crying kid. And she took a selfie with him in the background. And she's like, guys, he's still crying. I actually saw that. It was so funny to see that there was actually somebody that caught that and was like, oh, this is actually going to be a big deal. I'm going to snap a selfie with the kid in the background, just like, ah.
Yeah, I saw that picture.
That was way too funny. Craig says cats' lives matter.
They do.
They do. Jeff says Harold kept Jaymee up. Right. Brew says, no, he's back in Milwaukee. He just wants to know where the sun is. That's a great question, Brew. We had sun yesterday.
Popped out a couple times.
Popped out. Little hey, guys, you get one day a week or one day a month that I'm going to show the sun. Everything else is just be cold, rainy, and all Seattle-like. Not fun.
Could be worse.
It could be. That certainly is that is a very good possibility. So I think that's just about it for us today. If you think you're having a bad day, just remember that Chad Ochocinco is playing for the Professional Mexican Football League, and he scored his first touchdown yesterday. So just think about how far his career has fallen and how good of a day you actually are having. So keep that in mind. Special thanks to Nkwa Asonye for joining us on the program today. Great to have his insight about the world of college basketball. Coming up next, it is Pick 6 with Tanner Burke. I've been told that his brother Trevor might be making a return, and James Stewart will be back as well, too. You can get that show at 11 Eastern. No, you can't. What time does that show start? Is that 11 or 10? 9? Wow. I think it starts at 9 Central, 10 Eastern. We're going to go with that. Pretty sure that's what it is. 9 Central, 10 Eastern. You can get Pick 6 here on Brew Sports, and then you can get Halftime at 11 Central. That's the show I was thinking of with myself and Tanner. So we've got some good stuff coming up for you today. We're going to be talking about Tony Romo retiring, what that means for the world of football, and so many other great things. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us on The Morning Brew. For Jamie Evers, I'm Baxter Colburn. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on Brew Sports. Have a good rest of your day.